Welcome to In the Deep. I'm your host, Catherine Ingram. The following is excerpted from a session of Dharma Dialogues held in Lennox Head, Australia in July 2017. It's called The Lost Art of Contemplation. And in other news, we are launching our live online Dharma Dialogue sessions in February of 2018, which you can join from anywhere in the world. As we were just sitting here, I had a memory that I bet I haven't thought of in almost 50 years. And it brought tears to my eyes. So here goes. When I was young, my parents gave me my own telephone line, which was kind of unusual in that era. I had my own telephone line. Of course, that was for their own sake as well. But anyway, so I had a whole sort of life in my room. One night, somehow, my telephone line got crossed. I was trying to make a call. I can't even remember who or what I was calling. I might have been calling a movie theater. I might have been calling a friend. But our lines got crossed. And I ended up talking to this 10-year-old kid who was mind-blowing. I was probably 13 or 14, so I seemed in those years, much older than he. But we were on the same wavelength, and we flew for hours. I mean, really incredible. I felt that it was like a true meeting of the mind and heart. And there was a rhythm in the conversation that was just perfect for me in terms of communication. I was just dazzled. I think I couldn't sleep that night. And I just had that memory. And I was reflecting on just the extraordinary exhilaration that one feels when you have been heard and when you sense someone is hearing you, right? It's just so refreshing. It's so sustaining in terms of well-being, in terms of, being able to carry on, really. Now, where does that kind of communication emanate from, right? Where does that come from? We know in our own experience, we know when we're sitting with someone who can really listen, right? They listen with their heart. They listen with their whole heart. I said the other night in Dharma Dialogues, I interviewed Thich Nhat Hanh a few times back when I was a journalist. And one of the times I asked him about his friendship with Martin Luther King Jr., who, I don't know if you all know who that is in our country, but he was a great hero of the civil rights movement, a nonviolent strategist. So I asked Thich Nhat Hanh about his friendship with Martin Luther King Jr., and he said this great thing. He said, you could tell him just a few things, and he understood the things you did not say. When someone listens with their heart, listens with their being, right, takes it in and in the deep places, you know you're being heard, right? And when you speak from that place, when you speak from those depths of quiet, of calm, of no agenda, of same, self unto self, it's also a lot easier for the other person to hear. Now, often the thrust in many people's way of communicating is that they want to get something from the other, or they want the other to be a receptacle for their, like they want to somehow have, it's like a businessman's contract, right? They want something out of this. And that can be sensed as well. We're very sensitive creatures. But when you're with someone who's is not trying to get anything out of you, they're just there to really hear you or to offer their own true self, that is a different kind of communication.
When you share that, what comes is immediately being aware that Australia has a high epidemic of suicide, particularly with young men. And immediately when you said that, I thought, it's so simple. Probably many of those young men and women, but predominantly young men, probably wouldn't have taken their lives. I'm just imagining,
if they felt understood.
Yes, if they were really met in that place.
Yeah.
It's so simple, but it's so rare that really happens.
Yes. It's more and more rare in a way, because as we've spoken about so many times here, the speed up of the culture and the demand and the competition and the ways that, people feel less than, when basically they're just competing with a bunch of little, as I like to call them, just some avatars on Facebook and things, and Instagram. It's not real, but they don't know that, and so there's this incredible pressure. There's this incredible pressure at school and everywhere, and yes, I think there's a lot of despair among the young. Not to mention also, your boys are too young to have this piece of it, but I think a lot of the teenagers also have, as a component, a feeling of hopelessness about the future, and a great worry that there's a certain pointlessness to a lot of endeavors if they think they have no future anyway. So there's all of it combining and intensifying, and it takes almost an act of will to unplug a bit and to turn to, I was thinking about the word contemplation, right? There's very little space in modern life for contemplation. It's almost like an old-timey concept, but people not that long ago, there was a lot of time for contemplation. Sometimes people found that going to church on Sundays, but also just being in nature and having downtime, just having quiet time, which is also more and more rare, when we were kids, or when I was a kid anyway, there was a lot of downtime, before I got the telephone, of course. But no, even then, because it was mostly at night that I would be on the phone. But as a kid, I remember lots of times trying to figure out something to do. Like I'd be a little bored, and I'd have to kind of write poetry in my room or something. I would go into much more interior life because there wasn't anything else to do. I couldn't amuse myself with anything else. I could read a book or do some kind of quiet activity, play chess with my brother or whatever, but much more slow pace. And the kids have lost that. There's almost no time in their day that they're not rushing to this or that, keeping up in a competitive way, going to this and that after-school activity, this or that sports thing, some other training. Then they're online. All of that, it's a lot, and I am sure that it's unhealthy. I mean, all the signs are there.
Tomorrow we fly Jetstar, and I found out there's no TVs or films. So I told the boys, and they went, "What are we going to do, Mum?"
Just to New Zealand, right? To
3 hours.
3 hours, right.
And it was interesting because instead of like promoting this, just, I'm like, okay, I'm going to find something at the airport or, so there's a pressure that the kids, but it's like, I'm going to be bored, Mum, for 3 whole hours.
Yes. So they'll be bored. Yes. You'll have a conversation, Yes. So it's all those things that we that there's a certain way in which, it's like the frog boiling in the pot, that it adjusts, it keeps adjusting until it's dead. But if you threw a frog into a pot of boiling water, it would jump out. Well, in that way, we keep adjusting to the speed, or we try to adjust, to the speed and to the, okay, well, this is the new way it is. And, just an acceptance that we have to keep having more, more of everything, more. And it's a very challenging thing to go against the thrust of the culture. It's very incredibly brave to do. And it takes, like I said, an act of will.
What I'm grateful to you was when I first came to you, what I was hearing in the talks is just stop.
Yeah.
And I've been doing that, and it's just been happening. I sit on the couch and I just stop.
Good.
And it is willpower in the beginning.
Yes, that's right.
And it's interesting because it's like a slowing down a truck or something. Like it feels like there's an interesting, and then there's just like emptiness. There's nothing there. It's just like being, and there's just emptiness.
Yeah.
So I find that that's helpful for me as being the recipient, as being a true listener of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But when I'm caught up in that momentum, I'm not really listening to the other. I'm on the train.
Sure.
So it does require for this body-mind organism to stop.
Yes.
Almost like hold the horse back.
And then there develops a, as we've said so many times in here, a touchstone of what that feels like. What does it feel like when you just stop and you're just simply being and you're feeling yourself alive and clear, And then what moves through you is so different. It's not coming from a gimme, gimme, gimme. It's coming from a kind of like a fragrance that's coming from a plant, like I said the other night, what comes from a plant, what we call its fragrance, is actually its essential nature. It's essential oil, right? That's what's emanating. And that's what emanates when we get to that frequency of just ease. This lovely emanation comes out. It not only feels good, which it does, and it not only is highly sustaining, but it's also, you also become, I like to say, a shade tree for others, that in that quiet, in that, calm, in that ability to contemplate and communicate and listen. It's very, very encouraging and supportive to everyone you're around without even trying to, you're not even trying to be that, because if there were that, it would have a certain feel to it, but that it's just happening that way.
I'm an extremely fast person, just by nature. And just also to slow down, like in SC. It's, I slow down, but, the nervous system is just like, whoosh, it's just still very much shaking. And
uncomfortably so, or would you say it's your nature?
I just noticed.
Yeah.
I just noticed because in SC we have this exercise. We say just slow down. Because I'm such a fast person. I go like this, and there is many little stops I don't even see.
I see. Uh-huh.
It's just something comes to my mind when my mother died. It was very difficult for me. Even it was very difficult, the relationship we had, but there was love. But when she then passed away, it was very difficult. And so I was thinking, yes, I'm going to go to see a Jungianer, like somebody, because SC was not happening in that time. So I went to see this psychoanalyst, and then he just checked it like this. I'm so fast, and then he say, okay. If we travel with the TGV, with the TGV, that's the fast train.
Okay.
The very fast train.
Okay.
We have just to take care. We acknowledge the little stops.
Okay. Good. That's very good.
Yeah, it's such a good thing, and I see, even if I really lie down on the sofa doing nothing. I do many time in the day. I do nothing. Just like, okay, relax and blah blah blah, and I see, how the system actually reacts. It's just like I really have to concentrate and say stop, because it's just, and all the things around are just so
everything
pulsing.
around is going so fast.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, in your case, it may be that you, as a creature, you have a faster, moving essence, as do many creatures, right? As do many creatures in the animal kingdom.
Yeah.
So to really honor that, it may be that your rhythm is a little faster.
Yes.
And that's okay too. The kind of stop that I refer to is the stop on the big me project, right?
Yes.
The big aggrandizement, the building up of the sandcastle of me, right? That project that one could use a break from. and then there's another kind of rhythm that can come. For some people, it might mean that they actually go physically slower in life, right? And for some people, that adjustment might mean they actually have a lot more energy, and that they are actually, in fact, going a little faster than they were going because they were so exhausted, perhaps, from their me project that had a kind of depression and anxiety blanketing their energy. So the main point is, it's a different kind of freeing up that I'm pointing to. It's a freeing up of the obsession with, me, what do I like, what I don't like, my opinions, my regrets, my worries, my this, my that. What do they think of me? Am I hitting my potential? That kind of role of internal busyness. Ah la la is it, yes. Internal busyness is the motion that I'm saying take a stop from. Give yourself a break, and as many mini breaks or major breaks as you can. But there's some measure of that stuff will creep in the day, and that's not that big a deal. But overall, you might find your own rhythm in a very, very natural way, and that you really maintain an authenticity with it. Then it may be that it's faster. Right?
Yeah, it is fast. I will never be slow. I will never be slow.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yes,
but it's just like bringing really to the nervous system this kind of really like, ooh-la, just like slow down, slow down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Leonard Cohen has a great song called Slow. It's fantastic. It's one of his more, in the last few years, recent ones. But anyway, I've quoted it before in here, but he has a part of it. It says, how does it go? Anyway, you want to get there soon. I want to get there last. And some people want to get there soon, and that, and that's their nature, right? And maybe for them, they're completely in flow in that, But in this song, he talks about how he always liked it slow, that he always preferred slow. And I'm the same. I always liked it slow. And I come from a family of, my dad as a hobby was a race car driver. And then my brother was a race car driver. And when I was little, they used to drag me to these car races. First of all, they were so loud. I didn't have to go in the cars, but you're just sitting there watching it. It was so loud. It was just an assault. And I just thought it was the most pointless, ridiculous. I could not believe I was sitting in those places. And when I was old enough, finally, I didn't have to go anymore. And because they were very into racing, they drove like, bats out of hell. And so I was always in the car just braced, So my own pace is so slow, right? My own rhythm, it always was, And, I had to make some adaptations when I was young, but because of my family. But left to my own devices, I would just walk everywhere, I don't like to ever go fast. And I never liked, things at amusement parks. And, I never liked to go on roller coaster rides. I went on one once, I think, and never again. And but I know that's just me. I'm not saying that's the way to be. It's a different kind of slow that I'm talking about. Some people, they love speed. They just love it, They love to ski down mountainsides really fast, and And I was talking to one of my friends here in the neighborhood, he's a big wave surfer, and and he just loves the exhilaration of zooming on these massive mountains of waves. And the thought of it is just, it's like I'm a completely different animal. It'd be like talking about trying to fly through the air or something. So, but to really acknowledge in this quieting, I speak all the time about authenticity. In this quieting, you really tune into yourself as a creature. You're not doing it. It's done. You're just now feeling its true rhythms, its true nature. And in that sweetness, in that quiet, there's a gentleness that comes. There's a tenderness that comes. And so it's not only you're living in your own authenticity, but you're also highly aware of your steps and your motions in the world and your words.
I was listening to you talk. I got sick last year, and I'm quite sick. And one of the things that had to happen when that happened was I had to kind of stop everything. And everyone was giving me lots of love because I was sick, but actually inside I was so happy.
Because you were stopped.
And everyone was like giving me permission. No, I didn't have to do anything. It was like, this is incredible. It was an incredible opportunity. But I noticed coming out of that time, when I had all this permission to be stopped, that everything sped up again. And it's almost like I noticed just sitting with you too, like what comes up when I get still is fear. Survival of the planet. My own death, and will I be pleased, with myself when I'm dying? What do I have to do to be pleased with myself before I die? Like, it's endless.
Yeah.
And will I run out of money? Like, like it's endless.
Yeah.
So then the first thing that happens when I really slow down is like there's a wall of fear just to be in. And it's like when I'm with you, I can actually do it, or when I'm with someone who's going at a certain pace, I can do it and just go, just wait. But if I'm just on my own, the tendency is to speed up.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I understand that. Yeah. Yeah.
And look, it's not that the worries aren't legitimate. All those worries are legitimate.
Yeah.
But legitimizing those worries just speeds me up away from actually where I'd rather be. I think my pace is very slow too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's all, that's all very, very relatable. And it does take a certain, again, an initial willpower, to really just stay in your deeper waters and get to a place where you're understanding that part of this, a great part of this process is about letting go, and then you start to let go on deeper levels, and you do face your own death, or you do face possibilities of other kinds of losses before then, and certainly the messages keep rolling in loud and clear, don't they? And that's the nature of the situation, So one of the things that I rely on a lot is in the deepest places in my being, I know that I can let go. Right? That's kind of, it's sort of a booby prize, isn't it? But it's also the best protection, And if it's any consolation, I've known so many people through my many, many years of being interested in Dharma and being in Dharma circles who have died. And they have all died gracefully. Every one of them. Now, I think a lot of people die gracefully even without having Dharma, but a lot don't. But in this case, with people who've just had any kind of relationship to this kind of perspective and tapped into it enough, even just, it doesn't have to be consistent, just some, it's been amazing to watch. It's just been very consistent.
One of the things that happened, I actually got better. I'm not about to die.
Right, no.
Well, not that I know of,
Not,
but
yeah.
who the hell knows, right? Could die on the way home. But I had this, it was actually a profoundly beautiful experience when I thought that I might die,
Yeah.
right? Because there was a period where it's okay, maybe only 6 months, yeah? And it's nothing actually really matters.
Yes.
It doesn't matter that I haven't done that.
Yes.
It doesn't matter that I haven't done that. And it
Yes.
doesn't matter that I haven't. And I had this incredible, really deep sense of freedom.
Yeah.
But as soon as I heard that I was going to live,
Yeah.
within hours, the whole story was back. And I watched it coming back, and it's wow. But there it was.
Oh.
Yeah.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I know. I've heard this too. And yeah. Yeah, there's some. I when I was in 1982, I went through this one little scare, but then later I went through another one that was more troublesome with what might have been ovarian cancer, which of course is a bad one, but it turned out not to be. But for about 6 months or so, we were just watching it, so I was almost. I was in a kind of giddy kind of high. And I felt, just as you described, I just felt, so easy about everything. It's what does it matter? And I love that thing about the point you made about it doesn't matter if I don't do all those things. It doesn't matter if you don't do the bucket list, I like to think of it as I've already done the bucket list, not that there was a specific bucket list, but that the rollout of my life was just what it was, and it was rich enough, again, the way that the mind can torment itself by constant gimme, 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 more, more, more. Did I miss something? Right? All of that. Even worrying about how you're going to appear to yourself. Right? Even that is extra, There's a way in which one can detangle from a lot of adherence to the personal image, it can become just not that compelling anymore. How am I doing? How did I do? What was this life about? Did I figure anything out? Am I going to get any kind of upgrade?
In some ways, like the whole reincarnation story, do you know what I mean? Like, there's got this capacity to come with a bit of a sting in its tail. Like, I don't know what I think. I don't know whether I've had periods where I've believed it and I have periods when I haven't completely tossed it out.
I don't believe it at all.
Better not to, personally. I agree, because
better or worse, I don't know. I just haven't seen any evidence that makes me believe it. So therefore, I don't believe it. I don't believe things without evidence. It's not that I can categorically say it isn't so. I just don't happen to believe it because I don't see any reason to believe it. If it were the case, and if there were compelling evidence, then one could find some, happy scenarios about it. But I just don't believe it. So,
well, I notice when I pick it up, it's not central to me because I can pick it up and put it down.
Yeah.
But when I pick it up, it also comes with, did I do what I was expected to do in this incarnation? It's like, did I tick the boxes, or did I meet the demands somehow that were expected of me? Am I going up a level, as you said, or am I going back a level? Did I disappoint some person, personal God? Yeah.
Yes. No, I know all of that. It's a little bit heaven and hellish kind of, and all of those things. So, yeah, that fortunately I'm not afflicted with, but so then it really comes down to, okay, well, this is it. As far as I can see, this is it. It's not very long a period. I notice how fast I look back, like just then when I was sitting there and realizing that was 51 years ago that I had that experience, when I think about how fast it's going and how rich the moments are, if you really understand that, then nothing more really is needed. In a way, it's kind of beautiful that it does come to an end. There comes a point probably one is quite ready to go if you live long enough. That's another thing with a lot of my older friends who've died. Part of the gracefulness of the letting go was that they were really ready. And they weren't holding to anything of this world, So to kind of live in engagement with, while we're here, to be engaged and to do things as best as you can and have a certain care for how you operate. But at the same time, always just, Punjaji, one of my teacher, he once told the story of how, I don't know if it's historically true, but that Alexander, who had conquered the world, asked to be buried with his hands just open and empty, obviously, just open-handed emptiness, right? That he left the world with nothing in his hands, having had all the riches he could have ever wanted for his time. So to really kind of walk through in open-handedness now, and also knowing that relationships come and go, money comes and goes, or sometimes just goes. All of it is, we can't assume anything, and the world is getting rougher. What we used to assume would be a certain type of stability in the world that's changing. So all of that we're living with. We're living in a time of upheaval, and many humans in history have had to live in those kinds of times. One of the phrases I say to myself is courage, not hope. I'm careful about falling into hope. I'd rather just keep bumping up courage.
You're talking about creativity on Thursday.
Yes.
Which was great for me to hear that, because I've always felt that I wanted to be an ambitious, creative person, but I'm just hopeless at it. And the only way I can be creative is just in that way of just for its own sake.
Exactly.
Because,
yes.
But what I find the difficulty is when you're around so much the culture, and especially in the last, 10 years, there's so much ambition and a kind of competitiveness around all kinds of creativity that it's very hard to even find a space to be creative in a world or an environment where no one else seems to be doing that, or if they are, they're just doing it alone in their room and you would never know. And you end up doing it alone in your room because there's just no space, there's no where you can be like that, where you can just be creative for its own sake. And in a way, it's even looked down on as cheap or not professional or worthy enough. So that's what I find, is that even though one wants to just be creative, one needs the support, because being creative is a kind of being in a community and sharing
and yet,
if you know what I mean.
And I hear you, and I know that's very lucky if one gets to be supported and has one's work admired and loved and appreciated. That's very, very lucky. But there have been many incredible people through history who, like Van Gogh, for instance, and many others. Shakespeare also, even though he had managed to have his plays showing locally and everything, but many, many great people, artists and visionaries and thinkers and Dharma people and so on, were not really recognized in their time. And we can also assume that millions and millions have gone by that were never recognized, and that's true on our day as well. That if there is some creative outlet that you love, maybe you're just making it for your friends, and to really do it for its own sake, to really do it because you enjoy it, and not worry about. I know we do live in a time where there's so much ambition, and that really the skill that gets it out there is people's ability to market themselves. That's the big skill. That's what we're seeing. You know, a lot of what we would have appreciated as art in our younger days probably wouldn't have made it onto the world stage now, because they weren't people who were marketers, right? And they were incredible geniuses, but not marketers. And I know a lot of them, actually. I know a lot of incredibly talented people who are not known, not recognized. You know, just how it is here.
Yes.
Courage, not hope.
I'm turning 50 next year, and my kids will be leaving home soon, and I'm in, what does it all mean? What's happening?
Yeah.
Bored with my job. I kind of dip my toes in the Dharma water every few years when something's not going right, and kind of step out again when things...
That's often the way.
Yeah, I guess now I'm just kind of,
Yeah.
I can't really add much to that. I'm just, you know, and when you're saying about the me project, just getting caught up in recognizing that, but somehow recognizing it makes it harder when you're not able to, well, for me, when I'm not able to overcome it or something, or to, you know, starting to dip the feet into mindful water and just realizing what's going on all the time, and this internal dialogue and self-criticism, and it's so draining.
Right. Well, the first step, of course, is noticing that that's happening, and then there is a little option to unplug from it a bit. You know, just really take your attention in hand and force it for the moment into force the attention if you have to into present awareness. You can do that through your senses. You know, you can really allow yourself to feel your senses, and just for a few seconds. You know, like if you're looking at something, just really allow yourself, your attention to be noticing that you're seeing, and really just be seeing, and let it track what you're seeing, or hearing, or any kind of sense door, right? And also reflecting on gratitude, like in the very moment you're experiencing this very moment, allowing gratitude to start to well up inside of you. And you know, honestly, I mean, I know it's very cliched, but we take so much for granted, you know. We take so much of the abundance that we're enjoying for granted. You know, and it takes, like, if something goes awry, like you have a toothache, and that's getting all the attention, and there's certain thoughts that think, oh God, I'll be so happy when I don't have this toothache. Well, most of the time you don't have the toothache.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm quite good at that gratitude in an abstract way. I live in Suffolk Park and work in Ballina, and I kind of, it's my reflection times to and from work.
Good.
And often drive home just reflecting gratitude on my family and my children, and within about 5 minutes from the door, I've got teenage daughters, and they're in my ear, and gratitude when I'm not with them. It's driving me crazy.
Yeah. Easier when you're not around them.
Yeah.
But of course, you know, and also this is phase specific, you know, the teenage life is of a certain kind of frequency in the house, and that's big. Yeah, I mean, just to find ways that do interrupt the me project, the me story, the kind of constant rumination of
I have to be careful that this doesn't get caught up in the me story as well. Now I need to be more mindful, and now I need to.
I'm not using the word mindful. It's rather just very relaxed presence, very, very relaxed, and very you know, receptive. Like I was speaking about the listening, it's almost like you start listening with your whole being, you know, so that everything is kind of coming softly in. Yeah. And then all the things we're pointing to today, just finding little moments like you're describing the drive to the, you know, to and from work, just all those ways in the day, little tricks that we have to take little dips into just simply say the words, just being, right? Just being, not having to be mindful, not having to be anything, just being. kind of, it's like this recognition of the most fundamental taste of your existence, right? When you wake up in the morning, before you know anything, before you know your name or your to-do list or anything, you wake up into beingness in this simple way. And it's very relaxing to check in with that a lot,
The thing that sits inside me that's really difficult at present is I'm about to be a grandmother, which is very exciting. First grandchild. And the difficult part is bringing a child into this world.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just, like the excitement part of it, it's like, they know it's going to be a boy, so is he going to look like my son, 6'3", his partner's 5 foot nothing, so is he going to be tall, is he going to be short, all this lovely stuff going on. And then I flip into this world and the problems and the difficulty of just bringing a child into the world.
I mean, given that you didn't get a vote in the matter, right? So, there could be a deep surrender, right? To just, here comes another one, onto the planet at a time when we're not sure how we're going to be able to sustain all this. But, here comes another one. And this one's going to be one that you're going to be very, very connected with. And that will have all kinds of, as with every love in your life, all kinds of joys and sorrows. And then there's one other piece that I reflect on a lot because I have, as you know, all my little nieces in my life and my little nephew, all great nieces and great nephew. There's the same kind of concern about the world that they face and about the difficulty of what, if you just strictly look at the data of today, and if you just see it going in the direction it's going, with no changing of the course, then it's incredibly worrying for future life. And so then I say to myself, would they have rather been, to whatever degree they get, to whatever amount of time they get, or not? And I know that they would have rather been. They would rather have been. Right. They're having a grand old time now, and they're lucky little ones, right? But I think a lot of times, too, when we see kids in very dire circumstances, they also love life. They want to be, So it's a really deep, deep contemplation of I think on balance, I would recommend to younger people to really think twice about bringing any more people here and maybe consider instead adopting some of the ones that are just not wanted. That would be what I would more recommend. But if someone is insisting on having their own biological babies, then that's really their decision and their choice. And then you work with, okay, then there's some new ones coming, and they'll have whatever length of life they have. Life was never no longevity was ever guaranteed to anyone. Lots of babies throughout history just died, Lots of babies never made it very far at all. And
Yeah, and of course my concern at this stage, because she's kind of halfway, just that the baby is born normal.
Yes.
There's so many kids with diseases and autism, like lots of health things. So that's, it's just, it just kind of flips. So
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing, is whenever there's that kind of connection, that kind of intense, hopeless love, that you feel with these little beings, you're so vulnerable, right? Yeah. One of my friends told me that the day his first child was born, he was holding the baby in his arms and looking at the baby. And he said in that moment, he had never felt so much love and so much terror arising at the exact same time. Right? It was just all there. It's like, oh my God, this is going to be quite a journey. And it just comes with that, doesn't it? That's what love comes with, is the potential for the loss and the grief and frankly, the inevitability of it. So, hold on to your hat.
Could you say something about grace?
Well, grace, the word, is the same root as gratitude, actually. Do you ever think about that? Yeah, it's the same Latin root. So there's a way in which, sometimes people think of grace as something that's bestowed from the universe onto them, right? I experienced the grace of some circumstance. It was, but I experience it as an interpretation within myself. Yeah. I can experience something as grace that has not been imposed from without, but is actually an interpretation from within.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Merci.
Then you become your own grace-prone generator, right? You're able to filter through that understanding. This has been In the Deep. You can find the entire list of In the Deep podcasts at katherineingram.com, where you can also book a private session by phone or Skype and see my schedule of upcoming events, such as our spectacular retreat in Italy next October of 2018. If you're a regular listener, please consider making either a one-time or a recurring tax-deductible donation in any amount that is comfortable for you. Till next time.